The City of Phoenix holds community budget hearings throughout April, allowing residents to comment and make suggestions on the city manager's trial budget before final decisions are made. This public discussion is among the reasons the city's budget so closely matches the community's highest priorities each fiscal year.
Good evening and welcome for being at our another budget hearing. It's the first budget hearing for District 4. So I welcome you and are hoping you have many questions for our city manager. I will introduce our city manager, Ed Zucker, and he will begin the process.
Thank you, Councilman Pastor. Thank you for hosting us here in District 4. Just a couple of housekeeping items, and then we'll get to the meeting. I hope you had a chance to pick up one of our community budget hearing documents. And before I go any farther, actually, I'll ask Judy if she will come up and introduce herself if anyone needs translation.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Judy. Si alguien necesita intérprete, estoy en la mesa de atrás. Gracias.
Thank you, Judy. A couple of housekeeping items. This is I think the 8th of 12 budget hearings, so we're well into this. They are being recorded, so they are available for anyone to take a look at on the city's YouTube channel. So not everyone can get to every budget hearing, but if you'd like to see what other people are saying in other parts of town, it is available. And for that reason, we'd ask when you speak, if you would speak at the microphone right here. I know it feels a little bit formal, but it helps to the sound and the visual to work for Channel 11. If you'd like to speak, we'd ask that you fill out a speaker card, and then we will call those for comments, questions. We have lots of staff here. I want to thank our city staff who are here. They're not getting paid extra to be here. This is part of what they do. And so they're here to answer questions as they come up, or you may catch them afterwards if you have other things you'd like to talk about. So thank you to our city staff for being here. What we'll do this evening is we have about a 10-minute video that gives an overview. It is an overview. There is more detail in here, and there's even more detail online at phoenix.gov/budget. With that, we will go to our video presentation and then to comments and questions.
Hello everyone, and welcome to one of a dozen hearings on the City Manager's 2015-16 trial budget. Input from our residents is so important and helps shape what will end up being the final budget for the next fiscal year. The final budget is important because it provides the plan for how the city will spend taxpayer money and how services that you depend on could be impacted.
I'm really pleased with this trial budget because it represents a year of really hard work. Leadership by the mayor and council to make some tough decisions, our employees who took concessions and have worked hard to save money, and our partnership with our residents to bring a balanced budget for 2015-16.
Why is a balanced budget important? It's required by state law and city charter. In this budget, there will be no cuts to the city services that you count on every day.
I think it's important with this budget to know that we brought it into balance without cutting any services, and we can actually add some very important things for the community.
Even with state fiscal actions negatively impacting Phoenix costs and revenue, and with the sunset of the emergency sales tax on food on March 31st, the budget is balanced and important additions are being made thanks to the hard work of everyone.
The funding for the city budget comes from different sources. It's not all coming from one place, and it's divided into three main areas: the general fund, enterprise funds, and special revenue funds.
Examples of general fund city departments include police, fire, the library, parks and recreation, and streets. Enterprise fund departments include aviation, water services, solid waste services, and the convention center. Special revenue funds account for designated sources of money for a specific purpose, like sales tax dollars for the hiring of police officers and firefighters, and funds for public transit.
So you look at all of those areas together, that's really the diverse mix of all the things that makes up our city budget.
The mayor and city council took action early on, leading us to a balanced budget. That includes eliminating 162 full-time general fund vacant positions last December. For a second year, additional employee compensation concessions at just under 1%. And over the last several years, the city has eliminated nearly 100 management positions and cut overtime costs by more than 50%. The efficiency efforts by city staff have been remarkable. The city is less than $2 million away from reaching its 2015 savings goal of $100 million over the past 5 years. The mayor and city council have also led reforms of the civilian pension system. In total, we can expect to see a savings of around $830 million over 2 decades, thanks to the actions already taken by the mayor and city council, along with the city pension board and voters. This will have a positive long-term impact on the budget, although there is still more work to be done. In addition, the zero-based budget review process, looking at every program, has led to $1.2 million in savings for 2015-16. Every line item in the budget was scrutinized, which allows the city to find ways to save. Among the savings, $600,000 by closing 2 courtrooms where the number of cases has dropped considerably. $225,000 saved in the finance department by relying more on technology and reducing postage costs for mailing monthly statements. $200,000 in street transportation by analyzing signage and determining which road signs are unnecessary to install, maintain, or produce. These are just a few of many ways that staff has found to improve efficiency. To see the full list of savings, check out the budget summary packet provided at these budget hearings and is also available on phoenix.gov. One of the biggest challenges the city faces this year has to do with what's happening at the state level. In an effort to balance its budget, the state has shifted costs and reduced revenue to cities like Phoenix. That has led to a $6.3 million negative impact on the city, which in turn eliminated a $4.3 million surplus, which would have been used to address important city needs. This created a $2 million deficit. To balance it out, here's what the trial budget suggests. Holding off on replacing some older city vehicles and equipment, along with slowing the growth of the city's contingency fund, which is still at its highest level in city history. Here's a look at the new services proposed in the trial budget. First, let's look at the general fund. The budget adds $14,000 for implementing full-time recreation at the county-provided Kofelt Rec Center. It's located at 19th Avenue in Buckeye. That means the existing rec center will be filled with kids year-round. In the area of innovation, the budget adds a business analyst to begin preparations for Phoenix 311, which would provide a centralized information center, as well as identifying technology needed to implement a unified municipal services card. And many residents feel that protecting the public should be the city's top priority. That's why public safety amounts to 71% of the general fund in this trial budget. This budget adds an additional $2 million for 40 hours of police officer training for every officer. Now to dedicated public safety special revenue funds. Due to the fact that these funds will be balanced next year, the budget includes the hiring of 110 police officers in 2015-16, which will increase the size of the police force from where it is today. The council also approved a plan to hire 90 firefighters next fiscal year after hiring approximately 75 this year. Now let's look at dedicated Phoenix Parks and Preserves Initiatives funds. Those funds would provide maintenance for 3 new desert preserve trailheads, creating more opportunities for residents to enjoy our preserved trails. From the Development Services Funds, which is paid for by building permit and inspection fees, is this proposal, making for a better customer experience in planning and development services with improved technology and training and more staff to enhance the electronic plan review section and the front counter service. Now to dedicated transit funds. The light rail is seeing more riders now than ever before. The proposed budget would fund rail operations for the new Northwest Extension to 19th Avenue and Dunlap. Out of dedicated aviation enterprise funds comes an important improvement at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. It's one of the 10 busiest in the nation. The trial budget calls for the addition of a dedicated team at the airport to analyze noise impacts of flight activity, assess any proposed changes by the FAA, and to reach out to the community to solicit feedback and exchange information. Out of the Solid Waste Special Enterprise Funds, the trial budget calls for operating a composting facility which will divert several tons of green waste per week from the landfill. That facility is scheduled to open next year. But the list of community needs continues. Among them, police body cameras, addressing homelessness, restoring library hours, after-school programs, support for arts programs, park maintenance, and street maintenance and street landscaping. Any budget requires trade-offs, and street landscaping is an example of that. It is important to keep our city beautiful and safe by making sure trees and shrubs along the roadways are maintained. Right now, that happens when residents make a report, but that could soon change. The council will soon vote on whether to bid for the service, which means the roadways would be regularly maintained 3 times a year. Although funding is not currently available to increase this service, the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee is evaluating additional options which would increase the frequency of street landscaping service with added costs estimated to range from $1.5 to $6 million. Additional funding sources would need to be identified.
So the 2015-16 trial budget is really good news. We balanced the budget with no cuts to services, and in fact, we've added some things that are important to the community. But we always want to be looking ahead, and so we have a 5-year plan. We forecast ahead, and we see that we have some issues to deal with after this year.
One of the biggest challenges to the general fund, public safety pension costs. Much work has been done on the civilian side, controlled by the city, but the state-controlled system still faces challenges. This trial budget assumes phasing in added public safety pension costs over the next 3 years, allowing city services to be preserved. Also, revenue growth will be affected by actions taken by the state on income and sales taxes. The city is planning ahead on both of these issues and will work hard to address them over the next 12 months. Keep in mind, the budget hasn't been adopted just yet. Your input is important, and the City of Phoenix wants to hear from you on what the upcoming budget should look like. 12 public hearings will take place this month across all council districts, and you are encouraged to attend. You can also send your comments or questions to budget.research@phoenix.gov, or to reach out to us by phone, call 602-262-4800. You can also comment on social media by using #PhoenixBudget. Thank you for being part of a very important process. The City of Phoenix is committed to its mission of improving the quality of life in Phoenix through the efficient delivery of outstanding public services.
All right, with that, we'll go straight to the comment cards. Again, if you came in late, we'd ask you to fill out a speaker card if you'd like to comment. And please come to the microphone up here so it can be recorded and so everyone can hear. And we will begin tonight with Laura Stone.
Hi, I'm Laura Stone. I'm a resident here in District 4, and I'm a member of the Phoenix Arts and Culture Commission. And I have just a couple of comments to make in favor of arts and culture funding. I'm grateful that the proposed budget does not cut arts and culture services to residents of Phoenix. This is important because investments in the arts are investments that pay off many times over. For that reason, it'd be great to consider additional funding in the near future, and especially support for our grant program, upon which organizations of all sizes depend and need that funding for services. I'm currently facilitating a grants panel for the Arts Commission, the smallest panel, and it's been kind of exciting because we had 21 people attempt applications and 16 organizations apply. Unfortunately, we're only going to be able to fund less than half of those. I am very thankful to live here in District 4, which provides a really rich environment for arts and culture, including the Herd, the Phoenix Art Museum, Phoenix Theater, Rosie's House, and smaller groups like the Phoenix Women's Chorus, Young Sounds, and the Ballet Folklorico. The arts are important for so many reasons. Just a few very high level. The creative industries strengthen the economy. The arts are good for local merchants. We certainly see that here in District 4. The arts improve academic performance. As the mother of 2 sons who went to a performing arts school, I can certainly attest to that. The arts spark creativity, innovation, and problem solving. And the arts have social impact. Before I finish, I just have to give a little shout out to my friends over at Phoenix Public Library. I think we all have to be really excited by their IMLS nomination for a national merit, or a national medal. And I want to congratulate Rita for that. So, in conclusion, the arts and culture play a vital role in the future of our city, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to advocate for and to build this vital sector of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for noting something written in this budget document. Thank you for reading that about the library. Thanks. Next is Walt Gray.
Good evening, Councilwoman Pastor and City Manager Zerker. I looked over the budget, and I know that we have a balanced budget without cutting services, but we have cut services over the past 4 or 5 years during the recession. It seems to me that one thing that could be done is to take we only have $2 million to reach the innovation goal of $100 million in 2015. And I would think that innovation is continuing and that we've averaged $24 million a year for the past 4 years. And therefore, I think that we can increase the innovation maybe by $6 million. The $2 million that's projected, plus add another $6 million, which is still just half of the $24 million that we've averaged the past 4 years. And that would give us $8 million of additional revenue. Also, I'm wondering if any of the Super Bowl revenue, which I don't know has been calculated yet because of the accounting, but if that might leave a little surplus at the end of the year that can be applied to the following year. And I think if we did those 2 things, the $8 million in innovation and maybe some money from Super Bowl, we could take projects in the budget that the city manager has proposed, the trial budget. He lists a number of community needs, and that was in the video also. And I think we could do projects in many of those areas, and still not be where we were 4 or 5 years ago, but better than where we are today. For example, the PAC programs, we once were at 80, now we're at 44. Youth summer programs, once was at 800,000, now it's 250,000. And so I think those kinds of programs can be added to, as well as others throughout the area, the arts and others that will hear tonight and have heard probably at other public meetings. I think that something that's not in the budget, something that personally I believe in, is the maybe an additional staff member in the Economic Development Department, because economic development is very important, I think, to low-income areas where we've been underserved in trying to recruit businesses and industries and develop more local jobs, close to home jobs. And with the work that Christine Mackey, the Economic Development Director, has outlined, seems very difficult to do all of that with her existing staff. And I personally believe that one additional person should be devoted to recruiting blue-collar jobs for low-income areas. And I also feel that it might be good to contract with, this is also not in the budget, contract with the Maricopa Corporate College, which is part of the community college system, which provides non-degree training and recruiting and human resource services, and upgrade our lowest income employees. The city has talked about a program to upgrade women, and many of these people who clean the bathrooms, clean the offices, those people that I'm talking about, that they could be upgraded to better jobs within city government. Thank you.
Thanks, Walt. I would say that the City Economic Development Department does have a strong relationship with Maricopa Community Colleges, and particularly the Skills Center, but also with the Corporate College. We are working with them. But thank you for that, and we'll continue to do that. Appreciate that.
In addition to that, we have started an online high school program and are looking at employees that, for whatever reason, did not continue or finish their high school degree, and to get them started to finish their high school degree, and then encourage them and influence them to continue on with their education. So we are looking at many different ways of doing these type of partnerships, and are encouraging our 14,000 employees to continue to learn and get their education internally.
Next, we have Rosemary Halusha. If I said that right, I'm sorry. Okay.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Halusha, and I've lived in District 4 for quite a while. And usually every year I come down and I beg for the pools, not to close the pools, and to make sure we have enough time. Well, we never do get the time we used to have, but that's not why I'm here today. Thankfully, those polls will all open, all 29 of them. What I'm concerned about is that we have really dangerous conditions on our city streets. Cars whizzing by 60, 70 degrees on city streets, not freeways, and very seldom do I see police cars. Why are we risking our lives and well-being of residents by not having enough police officers patrolling the streets? I think it's something we really need to work on. You say you're going to be hiring more police. Well, we certainly need them on the streets, because it's a racetrack. And the residents didn't cause this problem, and it's not the fault of the residents. It's a long-term problem the city has had with its pensions, etc. So that's all I have to say. Hopefully I don't have to come back next year regarding the pools. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. We agree. We don't want you to come back next year for the pools. And I would also just acknowledge we have in the audience here Assistant Chief Mary Roberts from the Police Department. I think if I can see through there, Commander Spalding is back. There he is. So there are police management here represented to hear those comments as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, John Walker. Hello again.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a resident of this district. Mr. Zerker, you saw me last night at the other budget hearing. I'm also here on behalf of the Phoenix spokespeople. We have over 1,500 supporters in the city of Phoenix. I'm also a longtime Phoenix resident. I'm here to request that more funds be spent on bicycle infrastructure. Phoenix needs transportation solutions. I think we can all agree that getting around single individuals on cars is not going to solve the transportation needs of Phoenix. Light rail has moved us in that direction of thinking of alternative ways to get around. But no city has ever solved their transportation problems with single occupancy cars. You look at cities that have tried that, Los Angeles and Shanghai and other large cities, it goes nowhere. It causes pollution and health problems for everyone involved. And you associate pollution and sprawl with those cities. And I think to a certain degree that is the association made with the city of Phoenix, and I think it would behoove us if we move away from that. Bike infrastructure has to come before the cyclists take to the road. There's so many people, a large percentage of the Phoenicians that would ride a bike, and there's so many months where you could ride a bike, and it's so flat, and there's so many roads on which to ride bikes. But the problem is, as was mentioned by the previous resident, there is a lack of traffic enforcement, and more importantly, there's a lack of infrastructure. If you look at the Netherlands back in the 60s and 70s, we think of the Netherlands today as a ideal bicycling place because they have the infrastructure. They've been working on it for decades. But back in the 60s and 70s, they were building highways. They were paving over things and building parking lots. But they put in the time and the money to make that a priority, and now a huge amount of people get around by bike. It's healthier and it causes less pollution. In addition, I think generationally, people want to drive less. They're tired of driving a lot, and it does nothing for the quality of life. Millennials want to drive less. There's a premium on urban living. It's becoming more desirable. Far-flung suburban living with these commutes and with these long commute times on the highways is not desirable. And Phoenix is becoming more of an urban place, and we can emphasize that by funding alternative transportation options. When I talk about, and when the Phoenix spokespeople talk about bike lanes, we're not just talking about paint on the road or just a stripe on the ground. I mean, that doesn't make anyone feel safe. And I think something that is very important to keep in mind is thinking about someone that's as young as 8 years old or as old as 88 years old. And ask yourselves, would you feel comfortable allowing your child or grandchild to ride a bike on the street? And chances are in Phoenix, the answer is no. And the reason is because we have not been putting enough money into bike infrastructure. So when I talk about bike infrastructure, I talk in large part about reducing speeds of vehicles and about separating cyclists from cars. And I'm talking about separated bike lanes. What I'm requesting is that the city of Phoenix spend a serious amount of money in bike infrastructure, and I would recommend $1.50 per resident per year. That's a very small amount of money. It's about $2.25 million per year. That's less than 0.02% of the budget. Mr. Zerker, at last night's meeting, you provided me some information about Phoenix allocating over the next 5 years $24.5 million in bike infrastructure. If that's indeed the case, I think that's a great move, a great step forward. Unfortunately, I did research and I was unable to find specific descriptions of that. So maybe if I leave you my contact information, you can follow up with me. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
So it's very interesting that we're speaking about this today because on Saturday, I witnessed several incidents on Central and Virginia as I was getting my hair cut, watching bicyclists and motor vehicles basically, one was going to collide, and luckily the motor vehicle was paying attention, but at the time it was like, and something was going to happen, but it didn't happen, and it was luckily there were some angels watching over both of them. So I was talking to the director of transportation and saying, what are we doing about education? I said, because if we are moving towards bicyclists, and I can never say it right, it's the Shero, we need to start educating our motorists. I said, because they're not understanding that they need to share the road. And people are then getting aggressive, meaning motorists, are getting aggressive with, on the road. And I said, and I worry about that. And so I really think, and in the future, it'll be future conversations, but we really need to start educating our motorists as to we're sharing the road with others. And what does that look like? And how do we now behave? Because it's really changing a behavior on the road and a mindset as to this is no longer just your road, it's you're sharing the road. And so I think that type of conversation we're going to have in a bigger dialogue, and what does that look like, and how do we get it to the mainstream to understand? Because there are some bike lanes on Central and Maryland where I see a lot of times bicyclists coming down, and that turn, it used to be a turn on Missouri and Central, you will see or you will watch motorists, it's no longer a turn, but now they're getting in the middle of the bike lane and turning. And so it all has to do, I think, with education, but also enforcement. As soon as we start enforcing, then behaviors start to change. So I don't know what that looks like, but that's something that us as a city, as a group, and everybody together collectively come up with a way we can educate everyone on the road. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Next, we have Greta Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Zerker and Councilwoman Pastor. I'm Greta Rogers, and I reside in District 6, but I try to go to several budget hearings each year, and I've selected this one. When you talk about proposing the new budget, one of the things that I think we need to be aware of is that when we talk about 3PI, Parks and Preserve Initiative, which was originally passed in '98 for 10 years and renewed for 30 in '08, this is a citizens initiative that was passed by plurality, well over 70%, to acquire parkland and preserve land, to operate the parks and preserves, and to maintain them. In the mountain preserves, we recently voted to and did acquire additional land way up north, halfway to Prescott. And the Pioneer Village and the shooting range will forever be protected. But you have not restored rangers anywhere close to the full complement that they had in 2008 in the 8-9 budget after the market crashed in October of '08. And the city was not caused a slowdown financially because of the crash, because we don't invest in equities, i.e. stocks. It was caused because the economy crashed and everybody was adversely affected. But we need to restore rangers to full complement, and I would like that accomplished in this next, no longer than 2 years. We're down almost 50%. Those people provide safety in the preserves for those people who go to enjoy the preserves. Also, the maintenance of the trails, and I don't mountain climb and mountain trail or any of that stuff. But I have friends who do. And the trails are in total decline and disrepair. That's inexcusable. There are trails that are not even traversable, no matter how rugged you may be. I want this addressed and corrected. That's a public safety issue too. Now, as far as the finance of the city is concerned, we're a lot better off than we were in 8-9. And that's 7 years ago. But I don't know how many of you still subscribe to this magnificent sheet. I'm one of the few who does. Pension sticker shock is no joke. It's serious, it's crisis critical. And the cities in this state are required by state law to have their public safety employees insured by the Public Safety Employees Pension Fund that is managed by the state, if you can call it managed. The city next year will be $6 million in the short sum in this fund. But we still have to provide the funding for the police and fire department, and the elected officials are also covered by that fund. Our COPERS is in much better shape, but we still have to work very diligently to keep it that way. And eventually, I think all pensions, all public pensions, across this whole country, because this isn't a unique problem for us, it's a national problem, are going to have to go to an IRA form of pension. And it's up to the individual to be responsible also for contribution to his pension or her pension, much more so than the entity for which he or she works. But that'll take time, but it needs to start changing. The thinking on it needs to start changing now. Another thing that has concerned me, and I expressed this at the AVIATION meeting, which is where I live. And by the way, congratulations to District 4 for coming out in a wonderful way as citizens interested in and participating in your community. Ahwatukee gets an F. They had 11 people. I was the only one who spoke, and 35 staff. That is positively an F. So congratulations to all of you. I'm a little chary of projecting 5 years in advance. And the reason I am is because economies, as anybody knows, who's been around for more than a few years as an adult, and I'm clocking 87, economies do this. It's just natural. And occasionally they go, pow. I don't think that'll happen again very soon. What's the matter with this thing? There. I don't think that'll happen again very soon. But it will happen again, probably several years after I'm gone. But we do have fluctuation, and that's just natural. So we have to plan for that. And we can't go half-cocked off proposing, and I hope defeating, a $31.7 billion, that's with a capital B, billion-dollar transportation proposal that will be on the ballot August 30th so that we can run light rail track, the most expensive form of public transportation, from Jefferson down Central to Baseline. It isn't that I don't want the people on the other side of the river to have public transportation. They do. They have excellent bus transportation on all the main arterials. Excellent. And they work. And they're a hell of a lot cheaper than light rail and laying track and tearing up a whole community and putting businesses out of business while all this goes on. So bag it. And I will tell the mayor the same thing. I don't think he understands finance at all. But I want us to keep being very careful about our planning and executing financially. I'm glad we've restored PAC programs for the children. That's essential. I'm glad we've restored library hours. We now need to address street infrastructure, and it is disastrous. And I drove in today on all city streets. And I drive them very, very frequently, not just where I live, which doesn't have a lot of problems because it's still so young. But kids here all along the street, on Thomas, on Osborne, on 44th, on McDowell. I was on all of them. It's inexcusable, it's untenable, it cannot go on, it has to be fixed, and that's where we need to invest money, for the infrastructure of streets, and not just 5% of this proposed crazy transportation bill. That's a cheap tip at Denny's for a lousy cup of coffee. So let's get realistic and put our money where the needs of this community are, and that right now is street transportation infrastructure. So I will work with you as I have since we hit bottom, and I even did before. But I will, I know I'm not the most beloved person in the city of Phoenix. And that doesn't bother me a whit. I want it to be right. And like Walt said, innovation and efficiency has got to continue. And one of the ways we can do that, right at City Hall and the good across the street, is consolidating departments. Getting rid of the wasted empty space in City Hall and good, and maybe sell good. I think you could bring those people across the street. I walk into the clerk's department, and it looks like they had a plague there and everybody vanished. That's wasted space, and we're illuminating it every day. That's wasted money, benefit APS. We can tighten our belt a heck of a lot more than we have. Let's do it, and I'll work with you to get it accomplished. Thank you.
So thank you, Greta, for your comments. And you are loved by the city. You keep us honest.
Thank you, Greta. Just a couple things. I see Abraham James is here, and I'm sure he'll have a different point of view on the transportation initiative. But the transportation initiative does have significant money for street repair. You mentioned the trails in our parks. One of our rangers in the preserves, one of our rangers has initiated a steward program where we're seeking volunteers to come and help, and the rangers lead people in some trail repair. And so our rangers have been really innovative in how they're expanding their ability through the use of volunteers, but you're right, we do need more rangers in our parks. You mentioned innovation efficiency, we will continue that. And the issue of space, I actually have formed a group of staff who are looking at the space issues, and it's probably not the good building is the one that we ought to look at consolidating, but our personnel building is very underused. So we're taking a look at what it might take to do that and how that building might be used, where we're able to find ways to do that. So to your point, we are seeking that and we'll continue to do that. We do, yeah.
We can do that, we can solve it.
The next speaker is Jessica Amond.
Hi there. I'm a little under the weather tonight, so I'm going to try to do this without coughing all the way through. My name is Jessica Amon, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Arizona Humane Society. I also live in the Melrose neighborhood, and I don't know if you happen to catch, but we are now one of the top hipster neighborhoods in the country, so I'm very proud of that. But I'm here tonight, like I said, on behalf of the Arizona Humane Society. We've been serving the Phoenix area and surrounding community for over 60 years now. By providing affordable veterinary care, emergency rescue, and ambulance service, community education and outreach. We've been giving second chances and hope to countless valley pets as well as people. And while many people know to call the Arizona Humane Society when you see a sick or injured animal, most people are not fully aware of the critical role that we play in animal cruelty investigations, often serving as the first responder. Last fiscal year, our emergency dispatch responders received over 5,000 calls for reports of animal abuse or neglect in the city of Phoenix alone. AHS responds to calls from the public, police and fire department, and other agencies, and it is our emergency animal medical technicians that initiate an investigation. In many cases, we educate owners on proper pet care, but there are unfortunate situations that require an owner to surrender a pet to the Humane Society, or in the worst case scenario, we would have to confiscate an animal who's in a dire situation. Working collaboratively with the police department, we then provide appropriate veterinary care and housing for pets that are held in protective custody. The extent of our commitment does not end there, however, as we often then assist police in preparing their cases and testifying in court. It's really heartbreaking to witness what our EMTs experience on a daily basis, but without them, we would not be able to provide this invaluable service to the community and do what's right for our companion animals. We've enjoyed a really great working relationship with the City of Phoenix Police Department as well as the City Prosecutor's Office for over a decade now, and we really appreciate the city's dedication to prosecuting animal crimes and your continued support of the work that we do. So thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, we have Nicole Rodriguez.
I'm going to try to adjust this. Well, thank you, by the way, for being here, Councilwoman Pastor and Ed Zerker. I came here last year, and I had a slew of things for ideas for budget cuts. But this year, I'm asking for things. And I try not to sound too negative, but I understand when talking about the budget can come across that way. So I apologize, and for any ignorance I may have on that matter or issue. My primary concern right now is with the police hiring. I actually had a question for Commander Spalding. In 2009 or 2010, what was the police officer body that we had at the time? Like, how many officers did we have? Do you know that approximation?
I don't know. I don't know if he knows. I don't know if Mario, our Budget and Research Director, remembers some of those numbers.
Yeah.
Or,
3,370.
so 3,370 was our peak filled count of police officers, and 2009, 2010. 2009 was probably that peak.
That was that peak. And where are we at right now? Do you know?
Are we 27?
Nearly
2,800.
2,800. Well, so we're down about, what is that, more or less 500? Okay. Well, my concern is that we're not hiring enough. And the reason being is that what Greta had expressed concerns in, and also with bike safety, because I do bike to work, and I do have this, well, I don't bike every day, but when I do go out realizing that this could be my last day because of the issues that do occur on the streets, and I don't see the officers as often anymore. It's not to say they're being lazy, it's just, they're just not there. And our community action officers are worn down. I come from Longview West, and that's about 7th Street in Osborne. And when I speak to my community action officer, he always does respond, but I do know that he has a list of other things because their area, from what I understand, has expanded over the years. And these are some of the people that we deal with when we're dealing with non-emergency issues. And we all have them. It just is however we learn to approach them. And there's a lot of people in our community that will really boggle down these community action officers with legitimate concerns, but there's a lot of things that are going on. So I just don't feel that we are hiring enough officers. And I'm not sure how the fire department works, but I understand that they also do receive grant money, as we talked about last year, for hiring. So they're lucky for that. Our officers don't have that option when hiring. So I just wanted to express that concern. That's not just from me, that's from Longview West and also Longview East. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was, of course, the bike lanes. I know that Hans Park is undergoing some revitalization here soon, if not now, and there's allocation for that. But in the future, I would ask that the city maybe hold off on some of these really major revitalization projects for parks, because our bike lanes do need, I'm sorry, I forget your name, but a line on the street doesn't just work. There is hostility on the roads. Even Valley Metro has cut me off in a bike lane when there was plenty of room. It was actually just me and the bus on the road because it was so early in the morning. There are those issues, and you do have concerns as a cyclist, and I want more people to feel that they can cycle. For a long time I didn't, because I had the concerns of just either ignorance or aggression or just not paying attention because of texting or whatever it is, but we can't just do lines anymore on the road, but I think we should still continue when we have the money for that, but we do need to create a buffer, a barrier if possible. I know it's very expensive, but that's what I ask is in the future when people want to create these nice new renovations that are sexy for like the city of Phoenix central area or downtown. Hans Park is great, and I'm glad what it's going to look like, but it's very costly, and it's part of public safety to think of our bikes and our roads as well. And let's see if there's anything else I wanted to bring up. Oh, and I do come from a background in natural resources, and we're talking about parks. I have worked at the federal level, state level, and at a city level with preserves and parks. And from my understanding with our Phoenix parks, because you brought up the park stewards, it's actually ran by a couple of park rangers. But there's a private person that's a go-to. Our park stewards don't receive the training that they need for maintaining the trails. The trails, especially around the Highswood Peak area of Dreamy Draw, are in the worst condition I have ever seen. And there are people that come from all over. Even though National Geographic put us in their top 10 in the U.S., I don't know how that happened, because it really is not what it should be compared to many other states and city parks. We need more focus on that. And I don't think the supervisors who oversee the areas have that experience. They don't come from natural resources. They come from turf and golf and baseball field experience. And I know this for a fact. I know this part I'm not wrong about. And also we need to consider maybe even having officers over there inside Phoenix South Mountain Park, because the response time, if there's an issue up at the top of the 3 different lookout points, it could take approximately 25 to 30 minutes, and that's underestimating. So those are issues, and also our ramadas we're still not charging for, and people are just loving our parks to death. And it's as if we're going in and paying for their wedding reception, because these park rangers and groundskeepers are cleaning up after them. It's not required of them to clean up. Maybe they'll lose their deposit if there is a deposit. And they could throw things away, and maybe they don't get invited back, or they're not allowed to do it next year. But you got to think about how we are investing way too much time and money into some of these resources that are actually a luxury. So with that, that's all I wanted to say. So, but I just had the question about the officer thing, and that actually came from my community. There's a lot of people who are wanting to see more community action officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one thing about, thank you for coming and speaking. One thing that's important to know about police officers is we're not down 500 police officers because that's what we want to do. It was a result of the economic downturn, and the sales taxes that support police officer hiring dropped significantly. And so it's been about a 5-year plan where we've come back to being able to afford to hire officers again. And so in the next 3 years, you're going to see more officers steadily increasing. I know it's not as fast as the community would like, but it's within what we can afford to do with that. The 110 is planned for the next year. It's almost 300 in the next, it's over 300 in the next 3 years. Thank you. Abraham James.
So I'm going back to education regarding our sharing our streets. I had just, Nicole, you'd be grateful to hear this story. Just before our policy meeting, I had just talked about a bus driving and a bicyclist there, and the bus getting a little agitated, I don't know, and just went over to the next lane and just was like sitting there waiting for the bicyclist to go get ahead, and just then went around it. So sorry, Abraham, but I just want to validate that my stories, I'm getting validation that my stories, so that they know this is what I'm witnessing, and now I'm glad you validated it because you witnessed it.
Just last week.
Hey, Abraham.
Hello. My name is Abraham James, and I am a Phoenician. I moved to Phoenix 29 years ago, back in 1986. And when I think back what Phoenix was back then compared to today, It has improved tremendously. 29 years ago, there wasn't a freeway system that traveled throughout the city. I-10, there was a void of I-10 through the city that did not exist. And I moved from Dallas, Texas to here. And I always tell everyone this story, that when I moved to Phoenix in 1986, 2 weeks later, Evan Meek was elected governor of the state, so blame it all on me. Today, I'm the chair of the Library Advisory Board, and I sit on the Arts and Cultural Commission. I'm also the chair of the Citizen Transit Commission. And if anything that I can say about the city of Phoenix is that the willingness of our city managers, our council members, we've been very fortunate because we have always had really great people that have invested in toward the future of this city. And this city is going to continue to grow. I will, since I am the chair of the Citizen Transit Commission, I am very much a supporter of the new transportation plan that all of you will get an opportunity to vote on. I think this will be a game changer for our city and for the future of our city. I've been very impressed with our police department, our fire department. I know it's a very hard job that they do, but but we're constantly getting better. And one of the things that I really appreciate coming to these various forums like this is that we get an opportunity to push the envelope as to how things can be better. We don't necessarily have to agree with one another, but we are willing to put ourselves out and speak our minds about various issues. But I would hope that we will continue to invest in our city because we have a great city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abraham. I have one last card, so unless somebody else has been inspired, our last speaker will be Barry Wong.
Good evening, Councilwoman Pastor and Manager Zerker. Thank you for being here in our neighborhood to field our comments about the trial budget. I wanted to talk, actually I just wanted to say that I'm president of my neighborhood association called Medlock Place Historic Neighborhood Association, and I've lived there over 25 years, but I am a native Phoenician. Our board hasn't officially taken a position on this budget, but I do wanted to share with you some experiences we've had with some of your budget units and lend support for the appropriate level of funding so they can continue their operation, delivering services efficiently to our respective neighborhoods. Firstly, about the public safety budgets, both fire and police, we support continuation of proper funding to those units. But more specifically, our experiences with the Phoenix Police Department with Desert Horizon Precinct. They've done an outstanding job servicing our neighborhood. And before the realignment of the police precincts, we had Mountain View Police Precinct. And we've had very good experiences with our community action officers. They've been very responsive. And we've continued to educate our neighbors about the importance of calling Crime Stop as well as 911 when they see something that is improper in the neighborhood. And the police department has been very responsive and have encouraged a continuation of those calls so that they can respond to people that shouldn't be in the neighborhood or causing mischief. So I support the public safety with emphasis on police and fire, of course. Next, I want to talk about our experiences with Neighborhood Services Department. Also, they should be properly funded because they provide a very valuable services for helping maintain neighborhoods, especially older neighborhoods like those in the Central Corridor. We've had great experience with excellent service provided by Lisa Huggins Hubbard, who's been one of the top employees in the NSD, in our opinion. So we are very pleased with the services provided by NSD, and please continue the efforts in supporting that department. And last but not least, we've had outstanding service by Historic Preservation Division within the Planning Department, led by Michelle Dodds and her team, because we are a historic neighborhood as well as many other historic neighborhoods within the corridor in parts of Phoenix, and that's all part of the city policy supporting the historic neighborhoods, and so the designation with the follow-up from the department is critical to maintain the historic areas. So those three areas I wanted to publicly speak in support of, and I think the city's doing a great job in terms of trying to balance that budget, which has some very trying times, especially during the Great Recession. Also, I wanted to say that the police department, I do want to share that both Amy and Mario from Desert Horizon, even though they're new to our neighborhood, they've provided great service in the short time that they've been there. So thank you very much, Councilwoman Pastor and managers. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wished to speak who did not get a chance? All right, with that, I will turn.
Could I just make a comment?
Yes. Please come to the microphone if you wouldn't mind. Everyone can hear. It's Rosemary. Thank you.
This is in regards to the bicycles and the bicycle paths, which I support. But I think that a lot of cyclists don't know how to ride their bikes. Some of them face traffic, some of them don't face traffic. They're not sure. I guess they're not used to riding a bike a lot. And I think if they knew what the rules were and if they followed them, they probably don't know the rules, or they would follow them. I think it would make it a lot safer and make it safer for the motorists too. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary.
So it goes back to my education piece. Safety, 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 education. You want me to start? Or? So I want to thank you for participating. We were unsure what was going to happen tonight, only because some other budget hearings, two people showed up. And then I was very excited to see a number of District 4 residents here wanting to participate in the budget hearing. So thank you for being here and participating. This year is good news, and next year we're unsure what it's going to look like. And so I really want to start the dialogue now of 2016-2017. And what is that going to look like? And with all the new mandates from the legislature, what does that mean to our budget? And so I would like you to start thinking that way in order to start having these dialogues earlier and the conversation earlier, and really looking at the services, if we have to cut any, I'm not sure, but what will that dialogue be next year? So I just want to, yay, we balanced the budget this year, but I'm now into the future of 2016-17 and also 17-18. And so it's really interesting how time moves quickly in my world in the sense of planning. And I always know that we always plan, and when we plan, sometimes unexpected items happen to us, but at least we have some type of plan. So thank you for being here, and Ed, you're probably going to get some questions.
I fully expect that. Thank you all for coming so much. The budget, the next proposed budget will be presented to the council on May the 5th. So given all the input that we received, we'll put together any changes to this proposal and present that to the council formally on May the 5th, and then on May the 19th, the council will vote on that. So that is the timing coming forward. Have a safe trip home. Thank you.
You've been watching a community budget hearing held recently in Phoenix. For questions, comments, or ideas, please visit phoenix.gov or call 602-262-4800. You can also send feedback or videos through social media at #PhoenixBudget. This video can also be seen online at phoenix.gov/11 or youtube.com/City of Phoenix AZ.